Awesome. So I'm going to ask questions, but it's super casual and you can share whatever you want. Again, the purpose of our Why They Buy series is to really understand not just why people work with Amobee, but what your life is like on a day to day and how we could even help further and what your responsibilities are and just getting to know you. And so I would love to start by saying thank you and allow you to introduce yourself and your organization and your responsibilities.
All right, sounds great. Well, thank you so much for having me. So I'm Albert Thompson. I'm the managing director of digital at Walton Isaacson. Going into, I guess, year 13 with the agency. And I was really brought on to help sort of birth the media and really digital capability from sort of ground zero. The agency was really founded kind of on experiential and creative, event marketing sort of backbone. And obviously, talent management was always a piece of it in terms of influences, but it was really sort of putting in place the foundation from a lot of what we do digitally speaking today. That, I mean, pretty much in a full service capacity is what we do. Not only just digital, but even media from a media perspective. So, I mean, it's always been quite a ride. I think it's one of those stories like the success you have as a tactician is very much indicative of did you have good clients or bad clients? And good meaning clients that allow you to get kind of, experiment, play around the sandbox. And, I think the other facet of that is as digital is evolving, having people sort of not get in the way of progress. I think the other factor is partners. I mean, you got to have partners to sort of keep up with the evolution of where it's going that essentially make you look good. That if
Yeah.
you're trying to prove theories or connect dots or move into this area, experiment with this, prove this a thing, validate to your client that this is legit, like you got to have people that sort of pay off or make that pay off. And, Amobian from its early Adconian genesis was very much that. Even Contera as a separate operator was as well, and that was one of our strongest performing just partner tactics we ever did.
Yeah.
So when you look at the culmination of Amobee and all of these companies coming together, like Videology was our top first video partner that we worked with. And you got to remember, we're doing multicultural. We're not doing general market. We're doing high levels of segmentation, a lot of specificity. Everybody doesn't reach black and brown people very
Nope.
effectively. That's a lie. Everybody can't grow the business. And we had use cases where the only thing we were running was Amobee. And when you get clients, and I mean literally dealers saying business has moved, they've seen growth, that's a huge testament when you can put a partner on an island and be like, you're either going to nail it and win it for me, or this is a wrap. And then they deliver, and then you start to understand, oh, there's a lot that's built here. So I think with that sort of great expectations has come kind of great responsibility. The partnership has always sort of really lived up to that. So I mean, I'm grateful because they've made me look good. They've made me be a hero because I don't build the tech, and the campaigns do have to run and they do have to deliver. But I mean, when you get into the crux of, and I know we'll go through it, the why we buy, when there's a certain level of heroism that a platform has played in your success, in proving out a knowledge base of what you know, that there's you owe them something in that it's that notion of, look, I didn't get here by myself. Regardless of how smart or intelligent people think I may be, it's like there are a hand of players that help do that, and I always have to give credit to platforms I've worked with for a number of years, and I can still say, Amobee to this day has been me personally the number one partner. But even from an agency perspective, you could look at all the math, the amount of money we spent, the campaigns they run, the data management platform holding one of our key engines. Yeah, I mean the proof is essentially there. So my hat's off to the team, and got to give them all the credit, and all the people who've sort of come and gone have been part of that formula as well.
I would say that that is incredible to hear, first of all, and as Chief Customer Officer, that's what I'd love to hear. But I would say that there's a couple things. First of all, your humility and honesty is amazing, and that makes a great partner. And I want to expand on that a little bit because what you said was, you know, a partner, you either go out on an island, take a chance. That's a big responsibility. With great whatever comes great responsibility. I have no idea. I can never remember those things. But the point is, in essence, the word partnership. And I always aspire to have our relationships turn into partnerships. There are a lot of options out there, right? And it's a confusing landscape.
Yes.
And certain partners use that to their advantage, that it's confusing,
Yes.
certain vendors or technology companies. And so for us, it's really important that we're a guide,
Yeah.
but we have to listen and be guided by our partners as well. And so when it comes to, I didn't build the tech, I think to that point, I'll push on you a bit and say, but you're always vocal, giving insights and helping us get better. And maybe you didn't code it, but there's definitely a piece of you in there. And so I would love to hear from you. Like, what's the favorite innovation we've done together? What are some of the favorite like moments of aha that you've had over the tenured relationship with us?
Yeah, the interesting thing is I'm a consumer marketer by my background. So I'm not a digital guy. I mean, I am, and people will say that, but I'm not a media guy either. I mean, that's why I went through grad school, because my thing is if you don't understand how people think, you'll never understand how they buy.
Right?
Um, the reality is every technology partner, everybody in the ad tech sector is not oriented to hear the ear of a marketer. They're just really not, and let alone bend the ear. And that's very different than a media buyer who just wants to buy across a platform and has specs. I need you to meet this pricing, this flighting, da, da, da. When you're a consumer marketer, you're talking about how to move mind share, understand why people think, get into behaviors, the unspoken psychology of why they do things that they'll never declare. And I've talked to Amobee about it for many years. There are many things that consumer will never declare, but the bias is there. It's clear. But if we can just unpack a couple of them, that might be a game changer. And that's really kind of been the narrative over the years is what can you expose that they will not hand raise and say, but if you peel that back, I now know what they're thinking, and now we can make use of it and exploit it. And there are a few platforms that will stay with the evolution of that over so many years. A lot of them get to the point they just kind of tap out, or the limitations of the platforms like, okay, we can't really go any further because we're only in this lane. So we don't do that. We can't connect that dot. So I think that's probably the baseline is I tend to deal less with platforms that can't understand a marketer's narrative. Like, we're not talking about tech. We're talking about only one person is guaranteed to win. That's a consumer. You're either going to help me win with them or we're both going to lose. And that's just kind of the innate philosophy. So a lot of times when I talk to the team, it's about we need to understand this part of consumer psychology. We understand the why here. This is how they move in the physical world, but how does that translate into a digital world? So I think more of the aha moments have been around consumer insights. When the DMP started using their brand intelligence, and I was around when it first rolled out. And look, I've worked at public affairs firms that had very expensive technologies that extract that. I go back from a social media monitoring perspective to 2003 when the only company was Nielsen Buzzmetrics. So a lot of this work I've seen. But it was when we really started to talk about interest and intent in what they are doing, what they are looking for, what consumer pathway best pulls the trigger to buy our client's product, in particular Lexus, that I was like, now we're on to something. Like, that's information I can give to every partner that we cut a check to, and it doesn't matter what they do. And that's what we did. We started taking the brand intelligence decks and giving it to every partner outside of Amobee and saying, you need to layer this into your targeting because this level of consumer attraction you don't have, they do, but we're sharing it to make what you do better. So you owe credit of improvement to Amobee, at the end of the day, which that's a very interesting notion because most people don't share data from other partners and let alone intelligence from a competitor. But our partners understand that, okay, you just give me information so I can win more from you, which means the partnership will grow. Hopefully the investment spend will grow, et cetera, et cetera. So when I say that, when I first made the pitch even to Lexus about Amobee, I said, look, we can go the data zoo, app nexus, media math route and build it from scratch, but it still probably may never compete because are you really going to give me $1.5 billion worth of $1.5 billion worth of resources to create the equivalent? I'm like, if off the shelf, it's just got everything. And because I knew all the pieces that it formed, I always call it, Amobee's like Voltron to me. I already know what it's supposed to do. And if I can lend a hand in guiding what the pieces should do for our clients, then I know it's a win because I know what the Turn offered, I know what the Videology offered versus Conterra versus Amobee versus Adconian, So the configuration is it should just win. And I would tell clients, look, a decade of machine learning should be unbeatable. Just so you're aware. And so when I look at that, I'm like, even if I gave the budget or opportunity to another partner, how are they going to chase down a decade? And if Amobee kept rolling, they would still be years ahead anyway. I mean, it becomes a non-starter of a conversation. So I think the decade of machine learning is proof. Like, if the machine is built right, it should be unbeatable. I think using the brand intelligence to the degree they got merchandised across everyone. And I think the fact that Amobee proved to me that desktop for high intensive purchase decision still beats everything. And most people would never agree and they would never know, but I literally had to go back and forth with clients like, let's be clear, if you're searching for a car and you're filling all the specs, you want to do it on the phone while you're at a grocery store or in the bathroom across the street, or you're going to do it on a PC. Like, it's a PC behavior. It's like home shopping. Yes, we're not talking about buying toothpaste off Instagram. It's totally different. But the reality of it is a desktop-driven world for lead generation. And people just kind of looked at me, and I'm like, I've got data specific from dealer markets to back this up when that was all we were running. So I've looked at all the DCM floodlight tag path analysis, and Amobee desktop has beaten everything. So, again, pouring through the information, I've seen the credibility and the proof of it in. And look, human nature says the same thing. If you're going to do these things, you just rather do them on a laptop or a desktop, not on a tablet or a smartphone. And in particular, where mobile optimized is not equal. The desktop experience is near one-to-one for everyone, but we're nowhere near that from a mobile perspective. So. Yeah. Again, I mean, those are some of the big things that have sort of marked what we do that run contrary to the industry narratives. But I don't have a problem sort of winning in silence. I just want it to be successful and for the people that we work with to understand and see the proof in the value proposition, and we'll just keep it moving.
So what you said really obviously resonates. For me, it's part of what you were beginning to say is not about taking credit, but providing value. And I think that that's a big shift in the industry. And that's where that alignment to marketers' objectives and understanding and unlocking insights to drive behavior versus take credit for something that's going to occur is really big. So what do you think is the next big thing? Is that our problem to solve? Really closing that loop? I feel like closed the loop's a 4 years ago phrase, but what I mean by that is that, like, are we to a place where you're feeling like, the next innovation is driving those outcomes?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm when you're a marketer, you're an outcomes person, because you understand marketing is a derivative of sales. So if you don't make money, you don't have to play with. So most of the campaigns I always build from the back. I would always ask myself, okay, if I got to walk into a client room at the end of the year, what do I want to say? More importantly, what do I not want to say? And that's that we made misuse of funds. So I've always started with outcomes. Our optimization from Alexa's perspective has always been people most likely to visit a dealership or people most likely to complete an online lead, because that's all they care about. At the end of the day, those are the things that indicate we're going to make money. So when I look at the same thing treated for other clients, it's the same thing. The stuff in the middle it's in the middle for a reason. So there's no value in always saying, oh, you got the cheapest, most cost-effective CPM, you got the best click-through rate. Marketers are looking for customers, buyers. That's it. And then they want people who have intent to then become a buyer next. So for me, it was very much about building it around business outcomes and understanding that inherently. And I think the biggest folly in the business is people don't ask their client, what are the outcomes you need to see to make the marketing plan for this fiscal as a success when you have to do a recap to your boss to then get the next level of funding released. I mean, look, I always looked at the biggest challenges of a CMO because he's everybody's boss. He's the agency's boss, which means he's the ad tech partner's boss. He's the marketing, but he's the boss. So when you
I got a lot of bosses.
You're right. So when you look at who they answer to, they answer to, a CFO, a board, or this. I mean, it's all about money. The discussion is revenue ability. So when you dig into the outcomes and you open up that conversation, clients know that your focus is outcome, not all the other stuff in the middle. Then they bring you into a deeper conversation. You can start to ask, hey, where do we gain where do you gain the most profitability by product or by product line? Okay, well we'll go back to the ad tech widgets and we'll recalibrate around that to see if we can push more where you make more margin. I mean, and again, it's probably helpful for me that I have a bit of a finance background coming out of college, so I'm more sensitive to the money flow, and I always use the conversation around money that priority number one is to understand how your clients make money. Priority number two is to understand how they and pick the side of history each year you want to be on.
Oh my gosh, yes.
A lot of people just don't pick that mindset, so they end up in no man's land. And I've made sure, and I've tried to, that everything is a cadence around money, opportunity, and not waste. And learning very fast what's wasteful and discarding it, but explaining to a client why. We're pivoting away from this because you're overspending or you won't get the return. You get a different level of respect in stewarding the ship when they understand there's more of a one-to-one narrative with how you, with their pain points they got to answer to as soon as they get off the call when they go into their next planning meeting. I mean, that's really, you have to stay grounded.
Yeah, I think that stewardship and understanding as an agency or an agent, an advocate on top of the brand, has kind of lost some of its responsibility, quite frankly, in the age of advertising technology and trading and so on and so forth, because there is a huge, very powerful tool in some cases, like our competitors, like what was it that a Mercury Eclipse, which is like my dream car of when I was 16. It was purple. My dad let me drive it, and then we didn't have money to buy me a car, but like whatever. My dreams are crushed. Or a Lexus, right? And like either way, they're very powerful and require training, but if you're not using it in the right way, if you're not being an agent on behalf of the outcomes for your clients, really underutilizing it. And we've heard that from some other like-minded individuals. And so I'm wondering, like, how do we fix this industry problem where we're just putting people in the driver's seat of very, very, like rocket ships, right? Lexus rocket ships.
Yes. Yeah, it's one of those things where the biggest challenge I see is accountability. Look, everyone got it in 2020, a lesson in supply chain management. And if the supply chain is jacked up, there is no marketing. There's nothing. There's no event marketing. There's no point of sale. Like, there's nothing. And I would tell you that the average person in advertising media doesn't really have an understanding of how supply chains work, other than they need to work. But when they start realizing they couldn't get their mail, and they couldn't get holiday gifts out, and this, that, and the third, and all the melee around voting, like, it's what moves the world. And you see the brands that are most successful have that on lock. And they have it in lockstep with amount of money made, recalibrating units produced based upon when they will ship. And, the one fortunate thing working on the Lexus business is, a lot of the product is made overseas. So you understand what's going to happen if there's a product delay coming from Japan. And look, we have our other clients, Medline, that, their B2B business is supplying hospitals. So we know what kind of crunch they went through in terms of supply and resources. So that disrupted their B2C supply chain. I mean, those are real dynamics that's marketing. That's all underneath the umbrella. And a lot of people on the advertising media side think advertising media is the it. No, it's just one cog in the wheel. But if the other things don't happen, like, you don't even have a shot. And I think that's part of it, is that some of the ignorance in that advertising is just a derivative of marketing. You have to understand the beginning, all the way from manufacturing to distribution to retail pricing. I mean, we've had conversations with clients about, we could have helped you decide your retail partner had you just did foot traffic studies in the beginning, and we looked at where is the normal behavior of what human beings do. Why do they do what they do? And then if that's what they do, that's the partner you pick, not picking the one that's popular, the one you wanted to, or is easiest to negotiate. You have to align with, as I said, the only person who's guaranteed to win, that end consumer. And you just see that a lot of the thinking was totally absent, sort of unnecessary. I mean, it's one of those things where if you can continue to make the money without having to think, then in most cases people do it. And when I talk about the evolution of the Amobee partnership, the one underlying thread is it's work. And everybody doesn't want to work. But when I go through the diligence of how I've looked through reporting of all the pieces that form the company, and then even what we look at now, it's work to move all these pieces around and share this information, to break this down, make meaning of this, educate client on this. Okay, we can run a pilot because there's enough data we'll extract from the Amobee console to say, should we scale this to something bigger? And there's there. It's essentially work, but it's a marketer's work. We're just as an agent and as an extension doing it for them as part of the process. But what you'll find in a lot of the dynamics of the continuing relations between client, agency, and ad tech partners, that doesn't exist. And that's just a big folly. So this accountability thing is very much ingrained in marketing's discipline. It is not ingrained in advertising as a derivative in that discipline. And that's the challenge, in a sense, that you have part of the sector that's like, well, that's not my responsibility. My responsibility is green light these ads, have them run, we pick lanes, it should do something, but maybe your consumer just doesn't respond. And it's like, no, that's actually not how it works. Your job is to pick apart the behavior to make sure the lanes you should be in, because every digital pipe that's open, every brand doesn't have a business in being in all of them. There's some of them you should never be in. And part of what we look at to discern is, for a partner, you shouldn't actually be here. This works for other categories, or maybe you're a competitor based upon the brand affinity, but it actually, for you, doesn't work or isn't going to work. And I think that's the other thing that's missing, is just being very honest and saying, it's like, just because it's a shiny object doesn't mean you need to stare into that light. Maybe there's something that's a bit more brass tacks.
Distraction, something pass you right on by. Don't get stuck. Don't get
Absolutely.
caught. Don't get caught. I have one more question for you, because it's been such a wonderful time together, and I appreciate it so much. When it comes to the future, what are you most excited about, and what are you most afraid we'll fall back into?
I think probably most excited is when I look at a lot of digital. Because when I started buying in '99, either bought on a portal or a search engine, few ad networks, and that was it. But everything is still sort of very siloed. What I see emerging is the ability to move out of one lane and capitalize in the next. Like influencer marketing is a great example, which you can now extract the data of the following of an influencer, and I can take that data and plug it into, let's say, a console like Amobee, retarget the following, and go after it with a hard sell retargeting message to sell the product, versus with the influencer data opening up the gateway of consideration, etc. Before, you just couldn't do that. But you sit at a place where you have a social media monitoring from one lane, an influencer in another lane, a platform like Amobee running a DSP in another lane, and typically there might be 3 agencies manning these 3 different silos. But obviously, we're fortunate that we're full service, in which I can take one person's data or capability, lay it on this other function, extract that information, and give it to the next party to go advanced, moving people through a consumer funnel, and then step and repeat and do it all over again. That grossly changes the value proposition of all 3 of those tactics and players and what they mean. Because there's a lot of things in digital was kind of a jump ball. Hey, let's just do it. Did it work? Yeah. What was cool, and my boss said it was great that we did it, but we don't really know, and maybe we'll revisit it again next year. Another jump ball. Right. Versus programmatically, we will do this, unlock that, get this information here, go run that, measure, and then do it all again as a loop. Like, that's the thing that's very different. And look, it doesn't mean you have to do it with one partner who does all those things. It means you can start to move the pieces around, share the information, that then, that sort of rising tide lifts all boats sort of notion.
Absolutely.
Nice. I think in terms of what, to fall back into, I don't know if we will. I've made it very clear the skills you had pre-COVID are obsolete, because brands are rebuilding their marketing engine now as if it is 1970 when the original marketing playbook for that company was written, when that company was right. And if you think about it, the people who developed the original marketing premises for most of these conglomerates, they're not even around. Some of them aren't even amongst the land of living, but obviously most of them are retired. So to rebuild it now while the plane is flying with hundreds of millions and billions in revenue at stake, that's very different. I don't think anyone gets to fall back into anything. The reality is the new ask has gone up exponentially with pressure, and that is very different. No one's exploring to see where we're going to make. It's like, no, we're like fighting for survival. So I think the playbook is having to be completely rewritten with a new
Yeah.
level of sensitivity, adaptability, and agility to ability to expand or retreat based
Yeah.
upon success. And look, that's going to be nauseating. And to my earlier comment is there will be no greater definition than work than having to solve that ask in 2021.
We got pressure, got to have that agility. This playbook has got to be flexible. They say if you don't bend, you break, right? And it's really important for us to leverage those skills. When you were talking last, your hand movements reminded me of salsa dancing. And, next time, when we finally get to be together, maybe we can do all of that. But until then, I am so grateful for your time, for your partnership, for your very long lasting and collaborative partnership that makes us better. And so I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the entire relationship. And I hope you have a good rest of the day.
I know, you too. Well, look, it's been amazing, and look, we're going to keep it moving. I mean, it's funny. It's like every iteration, there's more work to be done. So a lot of the humility is getting to sort of what's the next going to be. But yeah, I mean, when I start to look at, what's available, it's just putting the pieces together. Again, it's unlocking something that, look, it seemed to be a wall and could not be done. So, I mean, I think that's probably what's going to make it exciting. I mean, look, if you're leaning into it, the times will get no better than where we are now because you have the ear of everyone to test and experiment like no other because so much is at stake. Where before they were like, well, we can stick with what we need. Like that notion is gone. You can't stick to anything tried and true anymore. So now's the opportunity to say, hey, we can move into this, see what this works out, how this manifests, and let's just run with it. But
Let's go.
Some teachers.
Let's go. Right?
Yeah. All right.
Wrap it up. Let's go. I like dropping some, puns for auto, because I'm sure you never hear those. It's a customized message of the archaic type. So
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Welcome.
Hopefully we'll talk soon.
Will. Do my best, everyone, okay?
Of course. Thank you. Bye.
All right, take care. Bye.